Good evening, everyone. So thanks all for being here with me this evening. Yeah, I'm live with the Thunderous One, and yeah, unfortunately, we had two other people that were slated to join us. We had the patriotic Christian and a someone from X called Cobra, but yeah, unfortunately, I've heard back from neither of those, and obviously they'd agreed to be here, but now we can't reach them. I've tried to reach out to them, and I have no idea what's happened. So yeah, so that kind of that does throw us for a little bit of a loop. But welcome everyone, and hi Thunderous, how are you doing?
Hey, Lloyd, thank you very much for the show, inviting me onto the show. And as there's a certain psycho apologist in America that says "tick-tock, time to rock," I think for us it's a case of "tock tick, time to kick." So let's kick on with the show, eh?
Right. Yeah. So hello everyone. Welcome Ashambo, Philip, codename. Yeah, very good codename Honey Badger. Yeah, and yeah. So and Raf Mad Monk, welcome. So guys, because we were expecting a panel and I had topics that were set up for discussion by a panel with one person leading, someone from the UK to talk about the issues of the UK. Obviously, we don't have those people here, so that changes things. So I've got a few topics that Thunderous and I can discuss, but we can also make a change to the plan. So we can pivot to a different topic, discuss that. So yeah, your thoughts in the chat, please let me know. And yeah, but I can go through a few topics. Oh, where did Thunderous go? Just disappeared. So that leaves me. So yeah, if we he's back. And he's back. Yep. So that leaves me here, wondering exactly what I should do with the time. So any suggestions, please drop that in the chat right now. So Thunderous, while we're on about the UK, things are not looking good. Although apparently today I just saw news reports. I wasn't sure what the details are that Trump has been speaking with Starmer. Apparently there's a visit on, and apparently Trump is bringing him to heel. I know one of the issues of potential contention is the fact that you have a judge that stated that a judge apparently with ties to Jamaica that wants the UK to pay $18 trillion in reparations to black slaves, and it wants them to sell the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. And apparently this is also an issue because this is where the US has a base, and if they depart, this means that China will seize that area. So this leads to various geopolitical issues, and the UK is making a lot of bad moves.
Yeah, as far as the Chagos Islands are concerned, I think there's a lot of hype around that, or a lot of false narrative. I don't pay too much attention to it because every now and again, systematically over the decades, you have to have certain enemies to justify certain actions of the government. At the moment, China and Russia are the excuses in order why the British taxpayer is having to pay more when their energy costs, in their fuel costs, in their food costs, in their council tax costs and such. And I just see this as another excuse to screw the people at the bottom end of the totem pole. As far as the reparations are concerned, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think it's just a lot of conversation at the moment, deliberately designed almost to antagonize people. Yet again at the bottom end of the totem pole, because there'll be a righteous indignation from probably 80-90% of the indigenous population against paying those taxes. And I dare say many of the Afro-Caribbean community would not want to contribute to those taxes as well, because it's effectively coming out of their own money. And if we had to look at it in a very intellectual manner, if we're going to start talking about reparations for slavery, where do we draw the line with this? Will Egypt be paying the nation of Israel any funds for the slavery during that 500-year period in Moses' day? What about the slaves? What about the slavery for 1400 years and still ongoing with the black slaves and the religion of peace? Will there be any discussions to be had there? What about the black African countries that actually sold the slaves? Now, when we start talking about the transatlantic slave trade, there's an image given of people leaving boats and ships, going on land and basically grabbing as many people as they can and dragging them on boats against their will. What people don't realize is it was actually black African people selling black African people. So will the Afro-Caribbean community, will they be looking to get reparations from the countries that actually sold the black people in the first place? So this is an argument that doesn't make any intellectual sense or hold any validity when you start analyzing it at a more crucial level. And let's be honest. I mean, this can sound like a very wrong argument as a counter, but it's not actually my argument. It's something that I've heard from two other people, one of them being Morgan Freeman, funnily enough. And the comment he made was had the slave trade not happened, would he be in the position that he is in now? If the slave trade did happen, then the black community, the black Afro-Caribbean community that were transferred over to America and such, their family descendants will still be in Africa. They themselves, many of them will not have even have existed because history would have taken a different course. So the reality is that though the slave trade was a negative and abhorrent, I don't think anybody can deny that. The existence of some people is predicated on the slave trade having taken place. An argument a Christian may use, well, I only exist, as abhorrent as it was that Adam and Eve sinned the way that they did, and Satan caused Adam and Eve to sin. The fact of the matter is, I exist as a byproduct of the decisions of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, because had they not taken that course, I would never have existed, because history would have taken a different route than the one that it did. And I think you can say that a lot about a lot of things, in particular the slave trade. Another thing is, if the Afro-Caribbean community is so determined to get reparations, what forfeits are they willing to make? Will they be willing to forfeit their citizenship in another country for a financial recompense and go back to the country of what they consider their origin? Would that be a fair trade-off? Also, we're looking at things today. I think you and I discussed several weeks ago about the border in America, where 300,000 plus children have gone missing over the Mexican border under the Biden years. That is a slave trade, a sex slave trade taking place. We know a sex slave trade is taking place in Europe as well as human trafficking. So why are we talking about reparations for something that happened several hundred years ago when we're making no effort about the slave trade that's taking place today?
No, because
does any of this make sense to you, Lloyd?
No, it's a false compassion. It's merely, this is history, false history used as a weapon to attack Western culture. Specifically, though, it's used to attack white culture, and it's used to attack Christian culture. However, from my perspective, coming from Africa, I would say that those black countries and those black people that aspire to Western culture, because Western culture is literally the most successful culture on the planet. It has been the most successful socially and financially, educationally, scientifically, undeniably. It is the most superior culture ever invented. It's created the most successful societies in history. Black culture tears down those blacks who aspire to also follow in those cultural footsteps. So they've already, to a large degree, destroyed that ambition amongst blacks. Although you do find certain countries are moving in that way. I think you can maybe see signs in places like Kenya and at least in pockets in Kenya, as well as Rwanda, which learned from its tribalism after the genocide. So you have these issues. And of course, you see an attack on history and education. And I think a lot of this is to do with these are humiliation rituals that are being enacted on Christians and enacted upon white European culture, which is largely Christian culture or derives from Christian culture. So these are all humiliation rituals designed to make people feel less than and to browbeat them into submission. In fact, I see an alignment here with the idea of submission. Submit to us, submit to our doctrine, give up your culture, follow us, and also tries to falsely inflate the status of other cultures who who lost in the cultural war and are now trying to reclaim a position for themselves, but yet in their arrogance, they also don't fail to realize that they are inferior. And I think you see an anger between their claims to be superior and the knowledge that they are not. And there's an anger that one sees acting against Western culture. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's a very toxic combination.
Yeah, I'd like to add something else as well. That many of the people who are, if you go with if certain black communities want to go along with the Islamic theology, then it's the will of Allah. As an example, you believe in the will of Allah. So everything that's taken place historically is according to Allah's will and direction. If you're somebody that believes in the Christian narrative, then the reality is Satan runs the planet. It's made quite clear 7 or 8 times in the Bible that Satan runs the show up until the point of Armageddon. So you can't blame other human beings when you recognize that your very world or viewpoint as far as how you see the world is concerned with the biblical lens quite clearly tells you that the nations are being controlled by the demons. Yet you don't want to blame the demons. You want to blame white-skinned people. That seems to be a contradiction of a worldview. Then when you really analyze it, the only reason that many people are probably making this virtue signaling or victim card, trump card, is probably because they feel that there's a financial gain in this there for them somewhere along the line.
You know, few people realize that black people, especially if you look at the nation of Islam, it actually taught that white people are the devil. It literally taught that white people are demons. Just like in Islam, effectively Jews are demons, Jews are animals. And of course Christians too, but there's the demonization of the other. And you've actually got this idea that these are less than human, you are subhuman, which is also how the Nazis are claimed to have treated any that they attacked and decided to remove from the earth. So you get the same patterns of thinking that actually, and yet somehow people are naive and seem to ignore this, or maybe they're deliberately utilizing it because they hate themselves or hate the culture or whatever the case might be. But you have the same patterns playing out and people are not recognizing this, although I do believe people are starting to see it.
Yeah, I think people are beginning to see it because it's very much like Islam. There was an air of ignorance whilst there wasn't any access to information. But the reality is now the internet has opened up an opportunity for people to do their own research and come to their own conclusions. And I think the narratives that are being spun are not working anymore. I mean, we've only got to look at, say, Islam as an example that nobody is being fooled by it. It doesn't matter what the governments in Europe and America are saying or the Middle East are saying about Islam. No, you have to be incredibly obtuse to follow the narrative as far as the claims of Islam being a religion of peace are concerned. No one's buying it. And I think
the actions are speaking louder than the words right now.
Yeah, oh, most definitely. But you and I have discussed this many times, Lloyd. The pivotal point or the crucial point in Islam, or the moments where it's started, as it were, was 1989 Salman Rushdie affair. And I think discerning people would have noticed it from there on. That was your historical point of reference. And I think with the reparations and the slave trade issue, that would probably go back for about 10 years. And I think also what doesn't help, the irony is when you look at, say, the reparations arguments for the Black Afro-Caribbean community, and you look at, say, the Islamic argument in defense of it being a religion of peace, you find that the arguments are not very credible when they're on TV, when you've got people espousing the defense of these things. And people see through it, and people are very much fed up of it.
Yeah.
The defenders of these don't work.
So I just want to answer a few questions that came up in the chat. But just to answer one point you made, I've mentioned this before, and people should be aware, the history supports it, that there were more slaves taken from Europe to North Africa than there were slaves taken from Africa to North America. So Muslim slavers from Africa took more people to Arabia, white people to Arabia and to Africa, at least 3 times more. Now, of course, you'll find that something like potentially as many as 60 million, some figures go as high as 80 million blacks were over the centuries taken to Arabia to be used as slaves. And they are largely dead because they were castrated, they didn't have children, and they died out. Whereas you find that those blacks taken to America, and when I say North America, that will be Canada, and the US, and that's a total of a maximum of 500,000. They've now expanded to 30 million plus black people in those regions. So these people have then grown and become the most wealthy, most successful black people in the world. I'm not sure what the figures are today, but certainly for decades that was the case recently. So these are very different, and the outcome have been very different. But question from MGP: why have historians lied to us about the history of Islam and jihad? Fear and also funding. Let me go to something that may help you. I'll just share my screen here. So unfortunately, since we have not been joined by two of the other guests that were supposed to come on and speak about these issues, I had two guests planned. But so this is, let me show this on the screen.
Can I just, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there, Lloyd, and forgive me for doing so. There was a comment in the chat about the, I just want to mention it now because the comments drifted up, and I want to bring it to the attention. Archimode de Saint Armand, where he commented about the lack of media coverage over the 70 Christians beheaded. I just want to say, Archimode, that we were going to be discussing that this evening. So thank you for bringing it up. It was going to be something that a group discussion to take place, but sadly, maybe another time.
Yeah, well, but on this point, again, the media coverage, I think that the government is aware that they've either messed up or that they are deliberately destroying the culture by introducing people that are incompatible. And I mean in the sense of, in a destructive sense, not just you don't get along, but people that are actually antithetical to the home culture. And to point a finger at Muslims murdering Christians, peaceful Christians, is to potentially cause the home population, we're talking the populations of UK, Europe, broader Europe, to erupt. I think they're afraid. They know they've been suppressing the population. They've been using the laws to suppress the population while enabling this, shall we say, immigration jihad, and favoring non-residents, shall we say, non-citizens or non-Europeans over Europeans. And I think the forces at play are, one, in terms of ideological warfare, one, they have to rub it in your face that you're powerless, to make you feel a sense of despair. They want to destroy your will. And this is part of also Islamic strategy. This is part of Islamic strategy, the jihad. Like when you kill people unnecessarily, you create great slaughter, and this destroys, as they would say in their text, it kills your heart. It kills the heart of the enemy. So it robs your will to fight. It destroys you, so you're unable to fight. You give up. So this is part of the strategy. It's intentional. Okay. You'll find there's a text called The Management of Savagery. Okay, actually, let me find that just so I can bring this up. So you can see that here, the management of savagery, the most critical stage through which the Ummah will pass. So this is where they use a strategy of violence to destroy your will, to shock and awe against the population. And you then submit. You decide to rather be a Muslim than to deal with the terror of having your children murdered, your wife murdered, of you being tortured. So this is part and parcel of, so this is actually an ISIS book, if I recall, or either Al-Qaeda or ISIS. And Google, if they find this in your storage, they'll ban this. They'll close your account, they'll delete the book. You're not allowed to have this, at least on open public storage. So this is something to bear in mind. So I think there's a fear that if people know the truth, people are going to erupt. And I think that's a genuine concern. Let me just tackle a couple of other things. And also, it destroys the narrative, because the narrative, once the dam wall breaks, the water is going to flood. And I think that the government will not be able to hold back that flood. It's going to be continent-wide. And whoever goes first is going to inspire the rest, and this is going to be a problem. And let me see. We don't do Gnosticism here, but let me see what else. Basically, victim blaming. Yes, very much. The establishment was bought by Qatar. That is very true. Now, if we go here, let's just run through this very fast. Thunderous and I did this some time ago. For instance, these are arms export partners. Now look at Saudi Arabia, and these numbers are at least 3 to 5 years old, right? The numbers are at least 3 to 5 years old, and you can see here that Saudi Arabia is a huge export partner, right, for arms. And let's continue here I've covered this before on the channel. Let's have a look. top 10 countries by spending since 2017. This is on lobbying for the US government. This is Israel here, that's South Korea, Japan, United Arab Emirates, right? Israel here in blue. And then you've got to ask yourself, the Cayman Islands is what, 39,000 people on the whole, in all the islands? How much of this is Saudi money, right? Saudi Arabia, we know, for instance, Trump's first term, they threatened to pull $250 billion from the US economy because of Trump's claim that he was going to deny access visas to people from terrorists from Islamic nations. And what he did was, what happened was the Saudis threatened, they said they pulled 750 billion, 3 times more than they officially had in the country. So we can expect there's a lot more money going around. Government of Qatar, government of the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands, like I said, 39,000 people or something, tiny island. Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, they all work together. South Korea, Japan, tourism island, right? The top 10 principles by spending since 2017. I mean, you don't even see Israel on this list in terms of spending for lobbying against the government. So, what I've got here, the UAE spent, in this case, 11,360 times more on lobbying than Israel in 2013, right? And Canada and Saudi Arabia spend a great deal of money. And again, you can see, so just when you look through the numbers, you look through the figures, and I'll go to the education figures here. This is the spend by Qatar alone. This is only up until, I think, 2019. So when you look at those figures, they've pumped billions of dollars, billions of dollars. Israel has spent this, and then Kuwait even spends more than Israel, right? Iraq is roughly on par. UAE is like 4 times more. Your thoughts on that, Thunderous? Any comment?
I think for people that want to doubt this, they've only got to look at the current state of universities at the moment and the immunity and impunity that is manifest with their clear support for Hezbollah. I think you couldn't go any further than to see a direct correlation with the money being spent and the byproduct of people supporting a known terrorist organization. It speaks for itself.
Yeah, and the word slave does come from Slavs because the Muslims loved blonde-haired, blue-eyed women from the Slavic nations, and they captured them and took them as slaves, as sex slaves, and others to Saudi Arabia and to Morocco and to Tunisia and other places of that type. So, I think, Ghaith, we've had enough of you. So, I think you are, it's quite obvious you're a liar. I mean, so here you go. It's quite obvious this man is not here in good faith.
Who's
He
that?
refuses, yeah, he refuses to answer questions. He's obviously not someone who can answer questions. Clearly, doesn't deal with the substance of any issue or argument. So I think it's time that you went away permanently. So yeah. So really, you have no benefit. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that he will say. Yeah, and of course, I mean, the fact is that truth causes offense, and the more you see this pattern, the more I see it, the more I see people behave like when I show them facts, and they respond negatively, they respond aggressively. It just feels like there's something. It's hard to explain, but I just start to feel there's a presence behind their actions.
But that's manifesting a lot of things now. Depending on where you stand as far as climate change is concerned, it is those that challenge the narrative on climate. Those are the ones that are putting forth the arguments. It is those who believe in climate change, man-made climate change, are the ones that are belligerent, argumentative, and refuse to look at the evidence. We see the same thing with Islam. We see the same thing with the whole LGBTQI drag max movement. You see the same thing with Darwinism. We've got to the point now of critical mass where truth has become a revolutionary thing, because now to some people truth has become hate speech, and I think Islamophobia and attacking Muslimness becoming laws now, is a full description of what you're trying to say there, where speaking the truth, quoting the scriptures, quoting the sources, and referring to scholars has now become an act of hatred.
Truth has become correct. And this is Islamic slander. This is, look what's happened in the UK. The discussion of bringing in hate speech laws. This is no different than bringing in Sharia law. This is the laws of slander. By the way, one of the sources that I used is this. This is the this is the ed.gov website. It's the US government website where universities and educational institutions have to declare the money they've received. Now, there are ways and means around declaring all of it so they can minimize what they report, but you can get this here. So you can see here October 15, 2024. You get this on a month-by-month basis. These are XLSX. So let's just open that. Here you go. So you can see what these schools have been receiving, just so you know, and this is what I base these numbers off of. These are the officially reported numbers. So you can also then, you can then change it by country. So yeah. Oh, they've changed the format of the spreadsheet, so you can't sort. I'd have to do a filter, and so you can do a filter and sort. But yeah, so you can't do a filter. But let's have a look here. Nigeria. How much money is Bahrain spending? 1.5 million. So, for instance, this is all the spending by Bahrain, right? So they've, I think it's $3.5 million spent by Bahrain just in that October 2024, whatever, on university spend. So you can see the amount of money. Kuwait, how much money they've spent, and this is at a given location. This is not everywhere. This is just at this university, at that university. So you can go through various different institutions. Arizona State. And the Bahamas. Now, what fund was these the Saudis doing this? You have to ask. So you can ask yourself, China is spending a lot of money at Arizona State University, and what are they getting for it? Let's have a quick look at what China has spent at Arizona State University. And let's have a look. And that total is 101,700,000. Well, what did they get for the 101 million at Arizona State University? They got loyalty. They got spies. They got people who will sell out their country. And just like the Dawa spend, gets them people who support Hamas. Your thoughts, Thunderous?
No, this is your area of expertise. I was just looking at the numbers and thinking to myself, my word, that's just unbelievable. You don't know it until, I mean, these things are hidden in plain sight as well. It's not as if the access is hard to get hold of. You just have to know that the information is there for people to see. But yeah, this is the sort of thing that you would think should be on mainstream media news, knowing how other countries' financial investments are operating in universities, Western universities, to corrupt the mind of the students. So you have to ask the question that when people are sending their children to university, what are they expecting for their thousands of dollars that they spend every year? You know, they send a bright, intelligent child to the school, but what are they getting in return? What package are they getting in return?
Yep. No, what are they getting in return? Also, for those who are here, thanks, Alexander Damien. Great to have you here. This is a very useful website, thereligionofpeace.com. I'm going to drop this here. And I'm also going to get the link that I gave you just a moment ago. This is the College Foreign Gift Reporting website. I'm going to drop that. This is the link that you can go look at the educational funding. You can see, not, I would say the exact amount, but you get a fair idea of who's spending how much money at different universities to buy loyalty. And yeah, it's frightening numbers of just amounts. Okay, this is the religionofpeace.com website. This website collects from public source data. So this is essentially media reports on killings by Muslims in jihad around the world. So this is very useful. So now, Islamic terror attacks since 9/11, 46,874 attacks by Muslims. So February 15 to February 21, there have been 33 attacks, 331 killed, 61 injured. Luckily, no suicide blasts recorded or known in 12 countries. And January had 161 jihad attacks, just under 1,000 killed, 610 injured in 22 countries, with 5 suicide attacks or jihad attacks. Yeah,
how many of those countries are non-Muslim countries versus murders within Muslim countries?
I think it's going to be a mixture of both. Let's have a look at the list of attacks. So this is the list of, and you can go about the terror attacks last 30 days. You can look through periods. You can look through. So that's what's reported in the media: list of killings in the name of Islam. Jay Coleman Kane, do you want to join us? I'll drop the link in the chat if you want to come on up, because the other two guests, for some reason, failed to show up and respond after we'd made the agreement. So the link is in the chat. Please do show up if you want. Okay, so this is let's have a look. Okay, so you're looking at Kenya, Central African Republic, Pakistan, Nigeria, Afghanistan, France, Germany, Somalia. And yeah, I'll drop this list again. I'll drop the link to this website, to the page that we're looking at is now in the chat. So you guys can go look this up for yourself. These are all Muslim attacks based on Islamic doctrine. Any thoughts, Thunderous?
Well, it's just, there's not really much you can say to that other than this is what we expect from the religion of peace. Yet the irony is we're constantly bombarded with the propaganda from the state to suggest that Islam is a religion of peace, in fact, creating laws in order to protect the ideology. Yet it is anything but as far as the rest of the world is concerned.
Yep. So you've got, I'd say, at least 2/3 of Muslim countries probably attacking Christians in those countries, but this is a very long list of attacks. Yeah. So that is 47,000 jihad attacks that we know of since that period. Yeah, Islam is lethal. It is a lethal ideology.
I think what you just said there, you said just a moment ago, jihad attacks that we know of. Oh. I think this is the other thing that we have to go with as far as European mainstream media is concerned and the legal system. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's been a pattern of when you get the lone attacker, the lone knife man, he seems to have mental problems.
These are all known wolves. It's never a lone wolf. It's a known wolf. The police have had him on their radar since he was 19 years old, when he tried to kill 53 people on a bus with a toothpick. And then he tried to kill his grandmother. He attacked his brother, and he attacked the grocer at the store with a sharpened object. And he made 92 other attacks. He was arrested 15 times. But this attack on the bridge is a complete shock. I mean,
yeah. And it's, even though he was shouting Allahu Akbar, it's not religiously motivated. It's not an act of terrorism. The guy had mental problems. That's what we're noticing in England, that the number of people, and in Germany as well, and I think there's been a few reports in France where the official narrative now is the guy had mental problems. If it wasn't on the radar, because that's the buzz phrase now, where in the comments where people will put, go on, authorities, go on, say it, and then the authorities' response is, he was on the list, he was on the watch list. So, but rather than say that, or if they don't say that, they will just kindly just turn around and say, well, actually, this guy had mental problems. So when you're looking at the attacks, it seems that the number would be more accurately truthful and honest if they recorded acts by people who come from an Islamic ideology. You may want to put it down as mental illness, but can we have a separate area where attacks by Muslims that you're putting down as mental illness can have its own sort of like database? So then we can look at figures by those who cry Allahu Akbar, and then we can look at those who don't cry Allahu Akbar, but you're putting down as mental illness, but come from a Muslim background anyway.
Yeah, no. Villainous, please, you're welcome to join us. I've dropped the link. So Jay Coleman Kane, Villainous, please feel free to join us. Send to the links. And Villainous also makes the point, these attacks are also non-war related. This is only against civilians. And I have to note, within the Sharia, a Muslim who decides to kill in jihad has to be sane. It actually says sane. Let me find this reference. It's within the jihad section. I'll find it, but they need to be sane. Otherwise, because your action is guided by your intention. So if you are doing things because, I don't know, because you're insane, then your intention is not for the glory of Allah. And then you only get, let's say you do it for money because someone offered you a goat, right? Or something like that. Someone offered you groceries for the week. Then the reward that you get is all that you get. But Allah does not reward you. So jihad has to be conscious. It has to be rationally decided, willingly decided, deliberately decided that you will do this. And that is how you earn reward from Allah. So this is not something that you need to be insane. So when Muslims do it, They have to be sane, and they're considered to be sane, but somehow we give them an excuse. We call it's Islamism. It's not Islam. It's an Islamist. It's not a real Muslim. It's not. That's not Islam. It's not nothing to do with Islam. We make excuses. No, the guy was mentally unwell. Yeah, by our standards, so by their standards, he's perfectly sane. What he did was perfectly rational and deliberate. He made a conscious choice. Thunderous, any thoughts? I'm just going to find this word.
No, what I was just thinking there was, it just reminded me of a scripture in the Bible where Jesus turned around and said to the Pharisees that you traverse the land to make one proselyte, and you make them twice as worthy of Gehenna than yourselves. That's what Islam does, doesn't it? It looks for people and condemns them in the eyes of God. I mean, they wouldn't have been condemned had there not been somebody that had been poisoned by this ideology. That the ideology effectively turns people insane. So there might be a truth to when people are arresting Muslims and saying, well, actually, this guy's got mental problems. Well, if he suffers from Islam, that could be a symptom of a mental problem, eh? So there might be a truth in there after all.
No, jihad causes, I mean, Islam causes that. So now, okay, this is the jihad section. Now I need to find the word sane. Here we go. Those who are obliged to fight in jihad within the Sharia. Those who are called upon to perform jihad when it is a communal obligation are every able-bodied man who has reached puberty and is sane. So you are required to be sane. So these Muslims are perfectly sane under the rule of Islam. Yeah, rewards in paradise are very thoroughly thought out. Yeah, the silent majority, the irrelevant majority, remember the Muslims who don't fight in jihad. You've got a small minority of Muslims for whom it is compulsory to commit jihad. They have to do violent jihad because otherwise Allah will condemn the entire ummah to hell. Because it is a crime, the crime of non-commission of jihad. So the rest are then absolved of doing this kind of violent jihad, but they're not absolved of that, which is called Fard al-Kifaya. This is a communal obligation upon all the Muslims. So groups of Muslims amongst every community must do violent jihad of some type. However, within your personal obligation, right, Fard al-Ain, you have to support the jihad. You cannot speak against the jihad. You're a hypocrite. In other words, you become a kafir and you are effectively an apostate. And of course, we know what the penalty is for apostasy. So you cannot oppose the jihad. You cannot speak against the jihad. That's insulting Islam. That's also revealing. That's also treason against the ummah because you're revealing their plans. You are now a spy. So you'll be killed for those reasons. So this is unfortunate that they have to fund it through zakat. They have to assist in some way. They have to defend it by making excuses, making social media posts, whatever the case is. But they are not they're not innocent bystanders. They are participants in some way because there are 13 to 14 kinds of recognized jihad. Although there's only one kind of legally defined jihad, which is violent jihad. Any thoughts, Thunders?
Well, I was just thinking when it says a able-bodied man who has reached puberty, and that in itself is problematic because reaching puberty, if you can turn around and say that a 9-year-old girl has reached puberty in order to have intimacy with her, then effectively you're sending children on one-way suicide missions, aren't you?
Say that again, sorry?
I said it's very problematic when it says there able-bodied man who has reached puberty. In Islamic parlance, a child of 9 has reached puberty, particularly when you consider Aisha. Aisha, by implication, reached puberty because Muhammad consummated the marriage when she was 9 and he was 54. So you're in effect, then you can see children are then, in Islamic parlance, capable of performing jihad, killing or dying for the cause because they've reached puberty. If puberty is the definition of being responsible in order to do these acts of atrocity, then it affects you're sending children to do these kind of crimes, then, aren't you?
Yeah, no, children may as well. No, in fact, you see, it doesn't. Given the circumstances, children must also fight. Children old enough, everyone has to fight. All Muslims, like for instance, jihad is also personally obligatory. That's fard al-ain for everyone able to perform it, male or female, old or young. Now, the only people exempt from jihad are infants. Literally, the only people in Islam exempt from jihad are infants. I mean, true, the UK media has a nasty habit of covering up jihad by using pretext of mental illness. And look what they just did. The BBC just published a documentary that favored and promoted Hamas. And of course, they dishonestly translated what statements people were making. They had the son of Hamas minister as the main person, and Mr. Faifo, the very famous journalist in Palestine, yeah, he was part of it. So the BBC has actually published, using public money, a Hamas propaganda piece. I mean, shocking.
But I think the public are wise to that, though, Lloyd. I don't think the BBC are losing ground in the UK. I mean, people are slowly removing their loyalty towards paying for the TV license or the TV tax. Their mainstream media in the United Kingdom is losing the authority that it once held a sway over people, and people are looking to local media sources in order to get their information. People are not fooled by them anymore.
X
So
is
the
becoming the premier news source. X is becoming it. Oops.
X is becoming it, but I think channels like yourself as well, Lloyd, people who are putting out information like this, UK Column would be another one. At times, Sonia Poulton, at times, Richard D. Hall, and other channels. They're putting out, I think people are turning to them now to get the news source because they're finding that the show notes are put underneath the articles that are being presented, and people can go and use the references themselves to see if there's any truth to the narrative, whereas the BBC and such don't do that. But they do have their own, I think they set up a truth department or such, or something along them lines, where they censor the news coming in and out of the BBC to test whether it's fake news, post-truth propaganda, or rhetoric, which is an irony when you consider it's the BBC.
Yeah, shocking. Welcome, Villain. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. How are you, Thunderous?
Villain, are you the gentleman that is in the chat sometimes?
I'm always in the chat, mate.
Yes, Villain, how are you? Nice to speak to you, finally.
Yeah, that's it. The people should be focusing on your channel a bit too there, Thunderous. I mean, it's, you don't do much lives, but there's lots of quite quirky and interesting old documentaries which are worth looking at. Yeah,
I did. That's my third channel now. I've had 2 deleted already, and I'm trying to be a little bit cautious with this one. And what I'm trying to do is find information that's come out from the past, but it's beneficial today as well, or just as relevant today. So hence why I grew up with John Pilger, so that's why I've got a lot of John Pilger on there, Mark Thomas. And there'll be more stuff going up. I'm collecting it at the moment, and what I tend to do is I go in splurges where I put out a load of material, then I slow down, then I put out a load. And you've probably noticed there's a lot of UK Column on there as well, and James Corbett, and I do respect those channels as well.
Right. Yeah. So thanks for joining us, Villain. I just want to make a note. People asked about this Fard Kifaya or Fard al Kifaya is communal obligation, and Fard al Ain is personal responsibility or personal obligation. Jihad actually falls under Fard al Kifaya, the communal obligation. The Muslims must do it. And I've covered this in my talks on jihad in detail. I can do that again in the future, but this doesn't mean it's also not Fard al-Ain. It's a communal responsibility, but it is also a personal responsibility. Just like prayer. For instance, prayer is a personal responsibility. And we'll say about, the Muslims must pray 5 times a day, and so on. True. However, prayer is also Fard al-Kifaya, a communal obligation, meaning that imams, the senior clerics, must say the prayers daily and correctly and perfectly. You can't trust the lay Muslim to say the prayers correctly, perfectly, right? To perform perfectly. So therefore, the responsibility falls on the scholars to do the prayers, and their prayer intercedes for the masses. So then technically their prayer is worth less than that of a handful of scholars. That's how this whole thing works. It's a duty to Allah, correct? But the important one is really the prayer. Liza Lane Petter, would you like to join us? You are very welcome. I can drop the link for anyone. Yeah, I'd be happy to drop the link, and you're welcome to give us your thoughts because I know you're from the UK, I believe. So be good to get your thoughts if you would like to come on and chat with us. I've just dropped the link in the chat. Yeah, so your thoughts, Villain, we are living in dangerous times.
Yeah. Just on that aspect, I assume the jihad then is something that every Muslim is supposed to be doing all the time.
Yes, correct.
Which is, but then there's a dispensation issue, isn't there? Which we've talked about recently.
Correct.
The rukhsah.
But they are still the ones who act in jihad are of a greater stature and greater reward, of more importance than the ones who do not. And those who refuse are hypocrites, and hypocrites are cursed by Allah and shunned by the community and potentially become apostates.
I think maybe there's a lot of what they call, in inverted commas, cultural Christians out there who are actually probably considered to be apostates already by those who are more strict in their religion. Would that be the case?
Say that again, please. Sorry.
There's probably a lot of people who call themselves Muslims out there who would be considered apostate by some of these definitions.
Yes.
If you're known, yes.
Yeah, in chapter 2 of the Quran, I think there's a I don't know if it's around about 14 or 40. There's an incident where Muhammad went off to war, and some people stayed behind. I'm sure it's in chapter 2, and one of the reasons they stayed behind was because they didn't want to die or be victims of the war. And Muhammad turned around and says, "Well, whether you came with us or whether you stayed behind, your fate would have been sewn up anyway. If you weren't due to die, then you would have survived the war." Or I'm paraphrasing, but something to that effect.
Yeah, no, correct.
The point that it was getting at is that it's a duty, because whatever's been predestined has been predestined anyway. And if you try and weasel your way out of what's been prescribed for you, then you are going to be likened to a kuffar or an apostate.
Right. Mary Alex asked, what's happened to that Muslim Jason Bourne? So John Week, Jason Bourne, she was a female. I am 100% convinced she was a female. Obviously, I had interaction with her over several years. I invited her hundreds of times to meet with me. She skipped 2 meetings that we'd planned. She never showed up for the stream. She did so with Astruth Apologetics, with Adam Seeker, with Reasoned Answers, with Hussein Mashni. Made lots of big mouth, lots of bold claims, and then failed to show up for the stipulated live stream to prove their case. As I said, she missed twice with me. I waited, never came on, and then of course goes on afterwards and just lies and lies and lies. I think she burned out. I think that's what happens. They get tired and they burn out, and I don't think they can do this for that long. They're young, they are enthusiastic, and then they burn out, I believe.
Just to go back to Villainous's point, I don't know if you noticed this week or was it last week? I think it was last week, where an Muslim imam was commenting that a Muslim that commits certain atrocities or crimes, including pedophilia, but prays, is a better Muslim than a Muslim that doesn't pray. And that was from an imam that was found on many channels last week. And I've heard that kind of before as well anyway. So it's just come to my mind now. So I think there's your answer. When an imam turns around and says you can have sex with a child, but if you pay 5 times a day, you're still a Muslim and is a better person than a person who claims to be Muslim but doesn't pray at all.
Yeah, so like all those hideous people in the jails who are, axe murderers but pray every day, they're fantastic.
Yeah, no, true. They're better than us, even though they've committed murder. And in fact, people say that's not a real Muslim, but there are very specific criteria that make a Muslim. One, he has said the Shahada, he believes in Allah and Muhammad as his prophet, and he believes in the last day. Those are the 3 criteria that make you a Muslim. So they can't say it's not a real Muslim, because those are the criteria, and they are thus Muslims. They cannot be dismissed. So,
is that criteria, Lloyd, predicated on the questions that Muslims are going to be asked at death? Who's your God? Who's your prophet? What's your religion?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so because if those are the three questions that Allah's going to ask a person at their death, and that's what they're predicating their Islam on, isn't it? Just those three questions that Allah's going to ask.
Yeah, and that's good enough, really. It's weird. Just for those, so for those who are asking earlier, if no Muslims, it's explained better in the Hidayah, but I've got this text here now. If none of those concerned perform jihad, and there's no jihad, it does not happen at all, then everyone who is aware that it is obligatory is guilty of sin. And in fact, in the Hidayah, it goes on to say it's a crime, the crime of non-performance. So jihad was a communal obligation at the time of the Prophet, and of course they have to imitate what the Prophet and his companions did. And it says there are two possible states in respect to non-Muslims. One is when you, as a non-Muslim, are in your own country, in which case jihad is a communal obligation. So if you are in your own country, they have to come to your country and kill you in jihad. It's a communal obligation. It's fard al-kifaya. So jihad is a communal obligation upon the Muslims each year. So once a year, a community of Muslims must make a jihad attack, preferably more often. So yeah, it's like the fact that our theologians, our academics, and our government people refuse to accept and understand and learn is shocking.
Just to comment on what Thunderous was saying a second ago, just comparing that to Christianity. If you had somebody who was an axe murderer and decided to become a Christian in jail, there would be a life change, right? And that person would not have in their heart the desire to be an axe murderer anymore. So there are plenty of people who have done that. I mean, I'm not sure that. So yeah, there's some quite vicious, violent people who become Christians in jail, and their lives completely change. But what Thunderous was mentioning there is that there's no obligation to change like that in Islam. You just need to say the right things, and that's enough.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, Villainous, because that's what the Apostle Paul says. He kept saying, put on the new personality that was made for you in accordance with the knowledge of Christ. So there's this continuous of refinement of your own personality. I think 2 Peter talks about that. If a person has a problem, if a husband has an issue with his wife, he has to sort out the issue with his wife even before he can go and pray to God.
Yeah,
because God's not listening to his prayers. So what you're saying there, yeah, it's a really good point, that there's a certain personality change that you have to go through. Whereas with Islam, it's just accepting the Prophet, accepting the God, accepting the Prophet, saying the Shahada, but you don't really have to change as a human being in any way. So other than perhaps grow a beard.
Yeah, I'm halfway there.
So yeah, so let me see were there any other questions from the audience? But Andrew Martin posted a very interesting, I read about that. So I'm sure the people in the UK are going to be very happy about that. They're going to go, well, no, he's it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, there is hadith, isn't there, about situations where you're allowed to eat people, but I don't think they're in places like England. I think it's like if you're stuck in a desert by yourself and there's nothing left to eat.
Yeah. No, agreed. I mean, no, because everything is permitted if there's a plausible reason. So as long as there's a plausible reason, a Muslim can do anything and get away with it. So look, there was a grandmother who was recently visited by two policemen for posting things saying, to a Labour councilman that you should be ashamed of your actions. I think that because of what you've done, you should resign, and what you've done is horrendous. She literally wrote things on Facebook like that, and two police came around to her house to intimidate her, of course, and she told them to take a hike. So this is the UK. It is becoming a state where clearly you're seeing enforcement of non-crimes. So things are very concerning. And then also the guy that burned the Quran 2 weeks ago in the UK, who was arrested by two Muslim policemen. Turns out the police had no intention of arresting him, but people higher up in government sent them around to arrest him. So the decision was made to enforce that. Your thoughts, Thunderous, coming from the UK?
No, well, it comes as a surprise, but it doesn't come as a surprise at the same time. You and I and Rome discussed this several weeks ago with the ex-military soldier, the veteran who was praying outside a clinic, and now they've created buffer zones where if you have a house within the buffer zone and your house, if you make your curtains may be open and you're displaying something that could trigger a person and on their way to an abortion clinic, that can trigger them to have a negative reaction emotionally or in effect be subjectively offended, then that could also create a legal problem for you. And the interesting thing is now is that if you live within that buffer zone, what does it do to the value of your house? I mean, if anything could be deemed as an insult or an offense to somebody on their way to murder their child, then selling the house is going to be a bit of a problem, because nobody's going to want to risk moving to an area where anything could be deemed as an offense.
Yeah, abortion is becoming a sacrament. It's like now, for instance, in Holland, now that they've passed this law where you can euthanize yourself, where you can voluntarily decide to go and kill yourself, for whatever reason, then they've now, of course, the slippery slope is a slippery slope. And they've now decided that the law has decided that, well, you know what? What if you've got a child that baby, it was born a little deformed, or the baby's maybe got a bit of a mental illness, do you want to kill your baby? We can arrange that for you. And so now they're applying it to the elderly, to the ill, to babies you don't want, who are born already, infants. So yeah, it's well known it's only going to be used for this purpose, like abortion, rare, safe, and legal. Now it's celebrate your abortion, scream your abortion, shout your abortion, and now it's don't pray within 200 meters of an abortion clinic. Don't be seen to do something that may be considered religious within 200 meters of an abortion clinic. If you're seen, you can go to jail. It's crazy.
But the thing is to say the biblical narrative is the only narrative that has a worldview where life is sacred. No other worldview has that view where life is sacred. So is it any wonder that we're seeing these things? I think Canada is one of those where they're actually offering the first to offer assisted suicide for being homeless or mental illness. You're now seeing it in Europe. I think it was in Belgium, there was the famous case where there was a terrorist attack and one girl saw her friend get killed in the terrorist atrocity. She herself opted for, because of PTSD, opted for state-assisted suicide, got the state-assisted suicide, yet the irony being that the terrorists who commit the atrocity are serving life in prison. Can anybody see a problem with this? And if anybody wants the references, I can put them in the show notes. I don't have them off to hand, but I've got them stored on my iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some strange and weird feminist groups actually have a requirement for abortion as like a hazy, like you've got to have an abortion to get in there. It's really quite weird. Like this, abortion is like a really heartless thing in a lot of ways. And a lot of women do it and they get extremely upset about it. But like to actually actively go and get pregnant and to have an abortion so you can join a particular radical group, man, that's pretty wild,
I've got a paper and I'll send it to you tomorrow, Lloyd, where somebody did a paper for a university and actually did a correlation of abortion and linking it to child sacrifices under the Canaanites and the other previous the Aztecs that were doing child sacrifices then, and likening it that the motive or the cause for the sacrifice was for personal gain. That was the correlation. And when somebody does an act of abortion today, they're doing it for personal gain. It could be for their career, it could be for money, it could be for lifestyle. So the sacrifice is for themselves. So I'll send you the paper tomorrow, Lloyd, but it's a very interesting correlation to read.
Yeah, and I think there was a report, I'm not sure if it was James O'Keefe, that spoke of Satanist covens within abortion clinics where the death of the child was part of a ritual, so of worship to Satan. So certainly, and Catherine M says, who knew the Christian philosophy for freedom of religion and worship would open the door to every satanic cult on the planet? Well, that's naivete, but also the Muslim, if you read their, like the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda and others, if you read their constitutions and their charters, they state that they will use our own laws against us. We will perish by our own miserable hands. They will twist these rules against us. So you cannot assume that people have the same moral system and the same ethics. And I mean, people go, what about the peaceful Muslims? Well, the problem is they're doing nothing to solve the problem. You see no universal condemnation. What happened to the Bibas family? You see no condemnation across the Muslim world for that's not real Islam. You see the
There was on the Bibas family issue. There's been an article recently in one of the papers where he's actually being protected in prison by the Muslim Brothers from any reprise or attack from any non-Muslims.
Who was that? Which guy?
The father of the child that murdered his own child. Then him and his second wife fled to Pakistan. Then they came back. Then they were put in prison. The father is getting protective immunity from the Muslim Brotherhood inside the prison he's in.
All right. Yeah, and then also Islam itself, ethically, morally, it is indefensible. So to call yourself a Muslim, you have to believe in and defend this particular ideology, and the ideology is satanic, quite bluntly. It is evil. It is violent, and there's no way you can defend it. So something like last year, between 2023 and February of this year, the UK have charged at least 300 people under the Online Safety Act with spreading fake news. And often elderly people, they tend to have a knack for visiting the elderly for posts that are deemed offensive, which often are not crimes, but they are these non-crime incidents. But also they are clearly weaponizing the law against free expression. So they are sending a chilling effect to people, and they are intimidating people into silence. I think they want to suppress the public from speaking, because once people speak out, they'll get angry. And again, I think you could see civil unrest explode in Europe.
I think that something's coming, that there's an endgame agenda, in my estimation, and all of this is setting up rules against free speech so that when what comes or takes effect, the laws are already in place to stop any uprising or rebellion or counter-argument.
Yeah, and of course, Southports, we know that was covered up. The law knew about him. And of course, the Labour Party has been covering up even the rape gangs because of Muslim postal votes. But what's happened now is the Muslims are large enough in their communities to form their own political parties. So now Muslims are starting to vote for Muslim politicians, no longer for the Labour government. And the Labour government was appeasing them to get the vote and not charging them with crimes and ignoring the crimes and often participating in them, which is just shocking.
But I sent you the list, didn't I, of over 52 Labour MPs that were caught downloading pornography or arrested for sex crimes against children. So one of the reasons they probably don't want to open up an investigation is because of how many Labour MPs will be indicted in the investigation. Because, I think I said that when we were discussing it with Rowan, it would not surprise me in the slightest, considering the cultural nature of the Islamic community, where they have intermarriages where cousins are marrying cousins. So there's a certain element of loyalty where members of the community who did not engage in child rape knew that it was still going on anyway, but did not inform because the cultural ties that they have knowingly were probably served as procurers to these children for these MPs and positions of higher office. But these were just the patsies, because there was a bigger, broader, deeper, insidious underlying, if you like, child abuse system that was on an industrial scale, and that the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs were merely the procurers or the front men. When you look at this list here that was provided, that's a damning list of MPs, all courts, for child pornography. You really have to ask the question, how serious is this as a problem?
Yeah, I mean, there must be some money going around with the elites, because it's just so horrendous that there must be some benefit to them, like in some material manner, to to not do anything about it. I mean, it's not like it's new. This has been known for decades, and there's zero happening. Even today, you've got Starmer bitching about the far right rather than worrying about what people are really concerned about.
The crazy thing is 96% of all terror organizations are Muslim. 85+% of terrorism in the UK is by Muslims. And they talk about the far right. I just find this, which obviously means that they find Muslim terrorism acceptable.
And they can't even define far right properly anyway. It's just a hate label for people that they're not interested in.
But they can't define what Islamophobia is, because it's a portmanteau. It's a Franken word. It's a conflation. It doesn't really exist. So all you have to do is fabricate a word, okay, and use that as your weaponized tool in order to silence criticism. You don't have to define the term anymore. Just use the word. Other people follow using that word, and the word becomes real in the eyes of many without actually intellectually scrutinizing what the words mean. The terms don't need you're a bigot, you're a racist. Even the word racism doesn't make any sense, because very few people hate other people because of color. What you're finding is that the reality is it's more ethnocentrism, where people don't like other people's culture rather than other people's color because of how other people's cultural habits are. If they're imported into an area, then the indigenous of the area are going to be repulsed or find it repellent or disagree with it. And it's not the color of the person that they're disagreeing with, it's their social cultural practices, but it gets branded, or the word used is racist because it's easier, because it stops the criticizing or the comparison of what it is about that practice that you don't like.
Right. Yeah, and this list here, you can see, I mean, this is a very long, uncomfortable list of Labour Party councillors, Labour Party chairman, Labour Party council, Labour mayor, Labour councillor, filming a child doing sex acts, sexual assault on a child rape, child pornography, making child porn, 90,000 images of children being raped, Labour Party councillor, Labour Party, Labour Party, Labour Party.
Is that a particularly focused on Labor Party, Thunderous? Because I suspect it's just a problem in the
of course,
Tories
yeah, but
well.
I mean, yeah, there could be. I think that was compiled for me because of the subject discussion at the time as to why Labour weren't wanting to launch an investigation, and this could well be the reason why. But of course, you will know yourself as well as I do. You could compile a list of the BBC. And find probably just as an extensive list there as well. You've only got to look at, say, Jimmy Savile, Ed Hall, Hugh Edwards, the newsreader. Then look at politics, and you've got the Ted Heath that was allegedly linked, Clement Freud, Lord Mountbatten. The list goes on. So in every area that you want to go to, you can compile a list of people that are associated with this deviant behavior. For me, it's a case of some people may find it hard to believe that these things are sort of like taking place on the scale that they are, but one only has to look at the biblical narrative to see that this was going on in the first century and even beyond that, in the days of the nation of Israel. You've only got to look at the practices of the Canaanites and the Philistines, and then you've got the Mayans in South America as well. Child sacrifice is not something new. This is an old habit or an old trait. The question the question that people should be asking is, why now? Why so much? What is it linked to? And where are we in the stream of time?
Yeah,
there is a good definition of Islamophobia. It's somebody who knows more than they're supposed to about Islam.
Yes, someone who's not blind. Yeah.
That's the argument, isn't it? I don't have an irrational fear of Islam. I've read the Quran. I've got a rational fear of Islam.
Yeah. AWLGX says good Muslims are trained to keep their mouths shut. That's actually true, because the Sharia has this chapter, holding one's tongue. Literally keeping your mouth shut. Don't reveal secrets. Don't be a spy. Don't betray your nation.
Don't ask questions.
Literally. Yeah.
and don't ask questions either. Don't ask questions that will cause you trouble.
Imagine that in Christianity, telling people to hold your tongue. It's just like, what the hell? The idea is to tell people about it as much as possible. It's as opposed to trying to be politically correct or whatever it is in your view, right? In inverted commas, according to your so you don't tell people secrets that might be true but embarrassing.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it, Villain? That's the difference between the ideology of other books and faith systems, and when you do the comparison with the biblical narrative, the Bible is very open. There's nothing hidden. I mean, you really have to sort of like Lord the God of the Bible for inspiring to have men write things that other people would not dare write. You've only got to look at, say, Lot and his daughters, David and Bathsheba. You've got other things like Solomon, being weak in front of Delilah and giving away where his strength lies, and the Jonah running away from an assignment of God. Elijah having a fit of depression. It wasn't long after he did the Mount of Carmel incidents with the Baal worshippers. So, these are very candid books saying very candid things and being honest because it appeals to the human heart. These other ideologies can't handle that.
Right.
In fact, they use that as an abuse against Christians, don't they? They say, "Oh, look, you've got all these people who are hideous, and like Solomon had 300 wives and nonsense like that. Like that's supposed to be, telling us something new that we didn't know."
That's not normative, but that's not normative. Muhammad's example is normative. Whereas
exactly.
what Rebecca was 3. How did she feed 20 camels with water? Carrying, I mean, each camel drinks 150 liters a day. How the heck does a 3-year-old do that? I have no idea, but fine. But yeah.
But the thing is, Lloyd, look what this is what I commented on several weeks ago with the guy. I guess, look what you're doing. In order to justify a 54-year-old man putting his penis in a 9-year-old girl, you have to, rather than condemn him, you're trying to justify him by finding other sources that you think are going to justify your prophet's actions. So you're not actually disagreeing with your prophet. You're not condemning your prophet. You're not repulsed by your prophet. You're trying to find a way to legitimize him by going to
want to be murdered for disagreeing with him. Just to change tack quickly, do you know that? I mean, Islam. So another thing to point out: how many people have been living for decades in hiding or under police protection for criticizing Islam? Take Salman Rushdie, right? Take Geert Wilders, and you've got a Baptist teacher that is still in hiding since 2021, forced into hiding because they showed a picture of Muhammad in school in a Western country, right? And a 2024 report condemned authorities for failing to protect him, failing to make him safe. And of course, no steps have been taken. And it shows now that the UK government has capitulated to Islamic law, to Islamic pressure groups. And Tom Bunnytail said he would love to come up and speak about Germany. And you're welcome. I sent you the link. It's in the chat. Please click the link in the chat. Tom, if you'd like to come up a little bit, you're welcome to do that. Certainly, you're welcome to do so. And also, with regards to Germany, you now had this vote that happened, and of course, the AfD, the spawn of Satan, came. Well, they doubled their vote share. They didn't win, and of course, the other coalition are now going to try to exclude them completely from government. But of course, what's it? The CDU was it that regained power? Merkel's old party under a new name and a new face said, "Yeah, we're going to close the borders. We are going to make sure that we deal with immigration from these illegal migrants." And of course, once they got into power, the very next day, they had a press conference like, none of us are talking about closing the borders. Niemand van ons wil die grenzen schützen. Yeah, so.
Didn't France do something similar to that recently with Le Pen? And she was doing too well in one section, and she got bullied out somehow or other.
Yeah, no, they colluded. I mean, that's democracy when you collude to deny the will of the people who voted. So yeah, they did the same in Germany. But look, personally, it's very probable, it's very likely that the coalition is going to fail. And then Germany's going to have elections in 6 weeks again. I mean, okay, that's exaggerating, but it's very likely they're going to fail. They'll have elections, and the AfD at that point, people are going to go, we voted for the CDU who promised to turn around their policy and they lied to us. They got in and they did exactly the same thing. 3,000 Afghans planned to go to Germany now, and the government's going to fly them in and pay for them. Why are you paying to import Afghani goat herders? I don't get it.
It's crazy.
I think this is designed to deliberately upset the people in each respective country that this is happening in. I don't see this as some kind of bizarre coincidence. This is all working to a strategy because it's happening in too many locations for it to be so. So you look at Australia, you look at France, you look at Germany, you look at England, you look at Belgium, and look at Ireland. These countries and America. These countries have a consistent pattern developing of issues with immigration, and it's the same ideology that they've all got problems with. I join the dots and I see that there's a collaboration there to create an unrest, a deliberate unrest.
Right. Yeah. So Tom
Actually,
Bunnytail, here he is. Oh my gosh, guys, we have a guest, Tom Bunnytail. Let's bring him on.
Yes.
Guten Tag, Tom. Wie geht's dir?
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Hi, Tom.
Hello. Yeah, can you turn your camera the other way around? Just the camera lengthwise. Your phone lengthwise would be really good, if you can.
You hear me?
Yeah, just turn your phone this way, if you will. Okay. Yeah, never mind. Leave it as it was. It's fine. Okay.
Okay.
Welcome.
I have some issues with my phone. The camera isn't working well.
No, don't worry. Welcome.
Maybe
Hi.
We need to keep it like this in the horizontal, vertical mode. So I have something for you. My own experience here in Germany. I live in Dormagen. This is, if you know Düsseldorf and Cologne, there's these two cities, and I'm just like in between of them, in North Rhine-Westphalia. And I had to share something with you and excuse my bad English. I'm very nervous right now because I watched your channel and did some great work.
Thank you.
There was a time when I don't know if you know this, there was this caliphate demonstration in Hamburg. And 1 week after this, I went to the city and I ordered myself falafel. And I spoke out like, I don't want to live in caliphate. And there's something weird going on here because some person walked at the store when I was ordering my meal. There was a young lady with a hijab and sunglasses, and she walked just by the store and had heard what I said this. I don't want it to be in the caliphate, and she called the police immediately.
No.
And this is what we're dealing with, boys. It's connected to law enforcement, and the police came and gave me in Germany. I don't know every word in English. Platzverweis. I don't know, Lloyd, if you can translate it.
Platzverweis. Verweis. Oh, good grief! I'm gonna have to look this one up. It's a little obscure.
It's like an order to leave.
A warning. It's an ordinance. It's a
okay?
warning. It's not a fine, but it's a caution or something.
Right, exactly. And this is all underneath. I looked it up. And this is all underneath the Strafbarkeitsgrenze, and it's not a crime, but they're still enforcing it. It's really frightening to me, and situation is getting worse. And I can update you with this, but then police they slapped me out of the street. And there's I live in a small city, like 67 people here living in Dormagen.
Platzverweis is technically expulsion, where you are told to leave.
Exactly. And just because I said at the I gave the order to falafel because I quit eating meat and stuff because I have to say like the Corona pandemic is what I say about it. It's like I really found to the faith, and this is it's a magical time, though it's a really hard time for us and for Europe especially. But I think Christ is calling me. I think that this is what I want to say. I want to line out. This is a time where we, like you live in Poland, and Poland didn't lose its faith like Germany, because I don't know. It's like when you lose your faith, God is not protecting you anymore, and this is the greater scheme of this. But what I need to say is that the underlying laws, we are in the maritime law. This is not state law, okay?
Mhm.
So this is what's important, because in this maritime law, Handelsrecht genannt, this is what people don't know, and we need to inform them, because this is very important to understand the problem, you know, because this is not, people are not aware of this, that we are in the maritime law, and this is very crucial to understand the position of law enforcement and yourself and citizenship and all
Oh,
this.
but you're saying so civil. What you're really saying is, okay.
Yeah.
So just to pause a moment there. So commercial law. You're referring to
Yes,
commercial law.
exactly.
Now the issue with commercial law is that if you look at the Sharia, remember possession is 9/10 of the law. Is a common phrase you hear in the legal term, right? Ownership. But if you look at Islam, right, things like your loyalty to Allah falls under commerce, because technically you sell your soul to Satan. When you
Wow.
sign a contract and you are owned by Satan, he owns you, which is, from our perspective as Westerners, as Christians, you have sold your soul. That's the parallel here, which is crazy. Slavery is also marriage. It's all ownership. It's all commerce. So I would say that really we're looking at, potentially, you're looking at Sharia with Western characteristics. It's the Sharia expressed in a Western form. So you are looking at, I mean, because I can trace all of these things to Sharia legislation. You were given a Sharia legislation because you insulted Islam. You did not want what Muhammad brought, and the police bent over and did what they were told to do. Yeah, this guy doesn't like Islam. I'll throw him out of the premises. Shocking.
Awesome. I didn't know if you saw my comment in the chat 20 minutes ago. I posted that I found something that corporations, since this was the statistics of 2020, and there are more than 2,040, I don't know, 2,048 Islamic organizations, and it's growing, it's exponentially growing. So we need to look at this as well, because as you said very, very well, Islam is encroaching. It's not like it's coming to the front door. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like encroaching. It's like underneath.
You can
It's like,
feel it. You can feel
what?
it, right? I mean, you can feel it. You know there's something wrong, a feeling, there's something wrong here.
Exactly. And I'm sorry for my bad English, but I'm very nervous right now, because I love
No,
your
you
channel
do
so
well,
much. I love
dude.
The
You
most
do
good.
well, dude. I think what you're trying to say is that it's coming from the front door, it's coming from the back door, it's creeping in from the window,
Exactly.
it's coming in from underneath the house, it's flying above the house, and no matter where it's making you. I think the word I would use is Islam is making people claustrophobic. They're feeling like they can't breathe because of the pressure or the presence.
And what I want to point out is here the entanglement between the National Socialists, and I want to point out that there was we live now, and Sigmar Gabriel, he's former politician. Sigmar Gabriel was a minister in the SPD. This is Lloyd mentioned a few minutes ago, the CDU. This is the Christliche Demokratische Union. This is they're supposed to be a Christian party, but they're not really anymore. This is not just by name. And what I say is, this Sigmar Gabriel told the people of Germany at a Parteitag of the SPD, Frau Merkel ist, was wir haben, ist, Frau Merkel ist eine Geschäftsführerin from an NGO, also einer Nichtregierungsorganisation. Das ist, was sie ist. This is what Sigmar Gabriel said. And this is, for the main population, not clear. It's just hidden. They don't listen to this. They are just watching Netflix, or they are not in the moment. And this is what...
There are some, I agree that many are not, but I feel a sense that there is an anger that is rising.
Yeah.
I feel there's the silent majority and the silenced majority. But now with the rise of Trump once more politically, people are no longer as silenced. And I think that people are connecting because they are speaking, at least for now on X. And I sense that there's a pushback coming. And that's my feeling. We are no longer ignorant. I think enough of us, and this will grow, I believe, to a critical mass. And I think they know that they're trying to suppress this movement because these people are clearly aiding and abetting treason, is my feeling. But I do
It's
feel
treason. It's treason. But I want to mention that the Nazis and the NSDAP, they try to remove Amtsmissbrauch. And what we have now is like in the Corona times, they are using Nazi laws right now in Germany. I want to mention this. It's very, very, very
yes,
important.
yes.
It's like crazy, you know. They Lohnsteuergesetz and the
Abuse
tax.
of authority, Amtsmissbrauch, abuse of authority.
Yes.
No, you're
I
doing
think
what the
crazy, you know?
Stasi did, because I know that the government is following people on social media, collecting their posts and making dossiers on them, and then going to raid them and sending the police. I mean, you send an entire SWAT team, 12 guys, to get a grandmother or a grandfather that was posting on Facebook, which is
Yes.
crazy.
In the Corona times, there was a demonstration in Berlin, and there was a old lady, like 71 or something. She died in the fucking police. Oh, sorry, my French. She died in the police. Wie sage ich das jetzt? In this police
Raid?
raid. Yes,
Raid.
She was in this whole procedure. In German, we say Maßnahme. In this whole procedure, she died. I don't know why, but police is keeping this information back. So it's really bad. It's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't lose trust. And thanks to you, Lloyd, you do a very, very great job. I don't want to sound silly, but it's very, very, very important that you do this. And I learned so much, and I have to thank you for this. And I'm just getting started with this. I need to be more like you and others. I think it's a difference for you to live in Poland, and I want to mention that Poland doesn't lose his faith, and they have their own national currency. This is what I want to mention. We left our currency. We have the Deutschmark, but now we left it, had the euro, and we left Catholicism. And look what happens now because of this. And if you lose Christ, you lose everything. And this is what it's really the message is about. We have to serve Christ, right? And this is a message for the world. If you lose your faith, we are saved by grace through faith, right? And this is what I want to say. If a nation loses his faith, then it's really bad.
Remember, they're trying to make you feel despair. That is part of how this warfare works. So
Yes.
don't fall to despair. A question after two questions. One, after this JD Vance speech recently, that seemed to really inspire some people because they've been put on notice. Trump has put Europe on notice. And two, how do you see this playing out over the next few years?
I watched the whole speech. I got goosebumps from the speech, and the backlash here in German press, like Die Welt, it's very like it's like they have been like they feel annoyed of this. You really see the people are getting this like normal population, but it's not like we're not at the stage right now where you can speak publicly. Police comes immediately. It's very hard to speak publicly about this, but I can say you from the press and from what I recognize here is that the authorities and I have to say the media and all those, this is fascism. This is the absolutely explanation of fascism. They are afraid. They are afraid of this, and they are annoyed what J.D. Vance told them. And you can feel this through the press and through the media releases from Welt, from Bild, from all those Axel Springer is one of those guys who owns all this newspapers and this media stuff. So you can really see this this speech has impact. Absolutely.
Okay, great. And what do you think will happen over the next few years? What do you think will happen? Do you think there will be political pushback, or will there be an uprising? Because it's hard to predict, but I sense if you don't allow the conversation, you're going to have people eventually being angry. Something's going to trigger this, I suspect.
Exactly. I don't know, because we're at a crucial point. At some point, there's no way out without violence. You know that. It's like I'm a I see myself as a crusader, though I'm not a crusader. But I wanted to tell you that because at some point we go. If I say it in Germany. And German, there's the saying: if you don't learn from history, you
will repeat it.
Exactly, and this is what Europe
You're the
is facing
slave of
right now.
history if you don't learn from history as well.
This is what I want to say, and it's very, very difficult to comprehend, because the voting for me, it's Wahlbetrug. It's a scandal. I watched the voting process, and here in my town, I live in Rhinefield. The Rhine River is just kilometer away from here, and at 18 o'clock, the wall cabins closed, and 1 hour later, they announced the CSU union, the sport union. They announced that they won. How is this possible? You know, you have to count all the votes.
Okay.
We don't have those machines like the Americans do with the ballot machines and stuff. So this is all a setup. And I say to you, like in courts, this die Urteile, what the judge is saying, and if you're guilty or not, this is like, das steht schon vorher fest. So they know. So it's theater. It's absolute theater, because we're in commerce law.
It was obvious that they'd won, so there's no problem. It's obvious they won. Why would we need to do more counting of the votes?
Exactly.
Biden won by 10 million votes. It's obvious. We don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely insane. It's insane.
I see.
Yes.
No, interesting. Thoughts, guys. I need to wind down shortly because I have an early day tomorrow. I have to go to school. No, I'm not saying I'm a teacher. I have a job. I have work. People think like, what? You're a teacher? You go to school? How old are you? Yeah, I'm a youth refugee that has come to Poland, and I told them I was 17 and I go to school. No, just kidding. So yeah, Willem, your thoughts on this? I mean, from a Australian perspective.
Yeah, I think in Australia we don't quite get these sorts of issues. I think probably because while we have a very high immigration intake, it's always through the front door. We don't have like hordes of Islamists just pouring over the border, which is what the case is in Europe.
But there are problems in Australia. People have
there
been
are. I'm not saying there's not, but there's not. That urgency is not there. There's not like people running around the streets doing crazy stuff. We don't have like a huge issue with like a Rotherham issue, really, that I'm aware of anyway.
Yeah, but you do have these enclaves.
Oh yeah, there are a few areas where the people who are migrating from Middle Eastern countries do congregate. So there's a couple of suburbs in Sydney where like 90% of the population would be Muslim. Right. So they're like little no-go areas in a way, in that sense. They are and they aren't. Like there'd be no problem with me going down and have a cup of coffee in a cafe down there, and it'd be completely harmless. But it is quite clear there are distinct areas that have a certain culture. This is the problem with multiculturalism, actually, in general, is that there's people tend to congregate within their own culture in any country, really. It is not like this melting pot idea. They're actually self-segregating entities. It's not like people like Australian government said, look, all you people from the Middle East, etc., you're required to go and live in Lakemba. No one said that. It's like a self-fulfilling event. It was just, if you come from those countries, well, I want to hang around with my mates, and so I'll go and live over there. That's the way it is. So multiculturalism is failed in that sense, because I think the idea was to have everybody on the same peg, and
No, it creates parallel states and then parallel societies, and it fails. Tom, how does it help you to learn about Islam? How does it benefit you to understand what's going on?
It's a breeze. You know what? This is what I said. Your work is so important. And AP and David Wood, I come to learn that because at the Corona tyranny time, I was very lonely at my home, because all of my family, I live here at the attic of my parents, and it's very, very sad to say, but all of my family members were against me at that time. I forgive them, because it was what Christ wants, but it's like this, all this pain, all this suffering leads me to God. I think he's using this to transform me, and I need to be transformed, because I'm a sinner, and I did very, very bad things in my life concerning not to marry the girl. And if I
don't worry, you don't have to get into any of that. But do you think that the knowledge helps, and that the awareness helps?
Yes, it's crucial. It's crucial. I tell you this because I thought about this, that we can really, you are someone who can really help the situation in Germany. And I heard this from AP. AP told in a live stream that the FBI is well informed about Islam, and I guess the BND and all these secret agencies here are well informed too. But they don't want to change the situation, because this is an agenda. I think Thunderous One was mentioning this some minutes ago, that there's something behind all this. It's an agenda running. And I don't know if you know this. Henry Morgenthau, at the end of the Second World War, I think, and also Karl Marx set the rules that are being out in the open right now. They are doing the Morgenthau Plan. And the Morgenthau Plan, you need to look it up. The Morgenthau Plan is you bring those migrants, right? Because these sovereign nations.
It's like the Cloward-Piven strategy. It's like others similar. Yeah. I think someone said Monroe Doctrine earlier stuff. But yeah, it's how do you disrupt Western society? You bring in something that is disruptive.
Exactly. And what I want to say before I go, and before you can get to your, because you told us you have an appointment and you need to get up early in the morning, so I want to respect this.
Early day tomorrow.
But when I was 17 years old, I'm just like a metal guy. I play guitar and stuff, and I was like in my wild teens, and I went to Godorf, Bonn, to the Rheinrockhallen. This was like a place for rockers and for partiers. And this was a crucial moment for me. And I was beaten up so badly from Muslims and foreigners. And what they screamed was so important. And this was the first time I came in contact with Allahu Akbar and stuff like that, and Scheiß deutsche Kartoffeln, because foreigners in Germany who hate Germans, they scream Kartoffel, potatoes. Yes, and this is what I was so beaten up, and this reverse racism, because the mainstream media, and they always told the only racism that exists is white racism. It's not the case. You told us that in a live stream. I don't know which one it was, that you told a lot of black people hate whites, and this is exactly what we're experiencing right now. And Muslims are not a race, but I had two appointments at court. It didn't happen anything. I just was paid the Fahrtkosten, the cost to
What
for
costs?
to go to the court was very far away, but I had to make a civil case, which I don't, because it's very expensive and I don't have money for a civil case and lawyers and all this. This is what I mean. What God bless you, Lloyd. The work you do is so important for us in Germany and exactly for those people who are in need in those countries like Germany and Great Britain. And thank you for this, brother.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for this.
Yeah, I think we need to be informed to make the right decision.
Yes.
And they are
Wasn't
trying
there a Bible verse? My people are dying because lack of knowledge. I don't know
Perfect.
what book that was. And this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is if you lack knowledge, then you are not an angel. An angel are infused with all the knowledge, and we are not. We need to learn. We need to be learned. So I thank you, Lloyd, and all the others do a great job, man.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for coming on. That takes courage, I know. So thank you for coming on. So Thunderous, we'll wrap up. I'll call it a night here. But last word from you and from Villain, and thank you, Tom. This has been really, really good. Great to have you on. Give your perspective.
Yeah, personally, I'd just like to say thank you to Thomas. You've said some really good things there, really positive words, encouraging words. I too agree with you. I think Lloyd is the channel as far as Islam is concerned on YouTube. All others are secondary, and I don't say that because I'm regular. I've known Lloyd for many years, and I think my attitude has never changed about him. Variety of material, always uses the sources, and very rarely repeats himself. Tom, I want to thank you for coming on to the show as well. I would like to have an opportunity that if you can come on the show again, that we can have a more open discussion as well.
Absolutely. And then I'm not as nervous right now.
And I'm never met Villain.
And I'm in a bathroom and I need to set up a PC, but I don't have I don't have a laptop right now. I just make it from my mobile.
That's fine.
And
thanks.
And I would like to thank Villain as well. Villain, we've only ever communicated via text in the chat on the show, but it's a great opportunity to put a face to a name. And I would like to thank you for your kind words over the years as well. And to everybody in the chat, thank you for listening and joining in tonight as well.
Yeah. Okay. It's nice to see you face to face too, Thunderous.
Yeah.
You'll see me in a moment when the chat goes off.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, I am trying in my own way on my channel to be a voice for others and to allow others to have a voice and do my bit. This is what I can do. All you can do is all you can do. This is what I can do. So, we all do our bit, but at least we're not standing still. We're not going backwards. And as Hein Pretoria says, ek het gesê, Omar, jou informasie gaan die wêreld aan die brand steek. He's saying, I told you, my friend, your information is going to set the world on fire. And Hein, ek sê jou, ons gaat nou braai. Hein will get it. If you speak Afrikaans, if you're from South Africa, you'll know what I said. It's an old joke. It's ons gaat nou braai is basically, we're going to barbecue right now. It's a joke. Basically, it says, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you get there with your meat and you got everything ready, and it's like, we're going to braai right now. And then the men go in the back and they get blind drunk for the next 7 hours. At 10 p.m., you're starving, you're dying, you're ready to go home. We're going to braai right now. We're going to make the fire right now. So it's just South Africa. You have to be South African to understand. So, but yeah, ons gaat nou braai. So yeah, thank you. Thanks guys. It's been really, really great. Look, there are issues in the world, but I think we can be positive. Understand there's more of us than there are of them. Just understand you are being gaslighted. They are lying to you, and they deny everything. It reminds you of the X-Files, the smoking man. The policy was deny everything. We know what they're doing.
I just want to mention something before I leave. I just want to let you know something from Christ. The one who is in us is bigger than the one who is in the world. Okay?
Yes.
So goodbye.
So have faith. Correct. You're right. And people are lying to you, but understand there are others who see the same problems. You're not alone. Remember, you are not alone. You are not the only one. You are not going crazy. You are seeing what's going on. You're not going crazy. You are seeing what's going on. You need to hang in there. There are others around you, and things will change. People are starting
And
to
if
see
something happens, something crucial, and I need to share it, I know who I can and reach for this, and I share it with you the next time.
No, thank you. Ja, so nee, goed, dis nou tyd. Ja, so we told, ja, ons gaan nou braai. Ons gaan almal braai. Ja, ons gaan ons probleme op die braai sit. So yeah, so guys, we thank you very much for coming on, Tom. That was really, really courageous, and thank you for sharing. Willem, always a pleasure. Always great to get your perspectives. I mean, you always have a really measured, calm, rational, mature view of things, and you have an insight that is rare, I think, and valuable. And Thunderous, always a pleasure, man. Always good.
Bye-bye.
So guys, good
Bye-bye.
night and God bless everyone. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Peace,
Good night.
everyone.
Yeah.